Hey everybody, what's going on? TJ here from Midlife Karting Crisis. You know, in addition to hosting this YouTube channel, I also co-host a Facebook Live event each and every month with my broadcast partner, Greg Wright of Rapid Racing Enterprises. During one of those broadcasts, a great question popped up on the chat screen, and it read, guys, what do you think's better, racing at your local club track every week or racing in a traveling national series? Well, I've given it some thought, and I think I've come up with the definitive answer. Before we get into that, though, I need you to go and scroll down, click the subscribe button. You'll also see one in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, a little YouTube emblem. By clicking that, you'll become a subscriber to this page, and you won't miss any of the great videos that we post up here trying to help you through kart racing. And as an added bonus for no charge, you get to see all the great comments people leave and share some of their information and their experiences as well. Make sure you watch this video to the very end, because at the end, I'm going to go over the definitive answer of which is better. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and take a look at the pros and cons of both types of kart racing. Racing at the same racetrack every week in your club setting, and the traveling racing series. So here we go. We're going to start with racing at the same racetrack, oftentimes referred to as your local track, week in and week out. Number one. It is substantially easier getting your kart dialed in to be competitive if you're at the same racetrack, turning the same corners week in and week out. Should be very quickly within one or two events. You should get the gearing figured out. And after that, really the only thing that's going to be a changing factor is going to be the relative temperature of the racetrack, the ambient air when it comes to dialing in your carburation and your tire pressures. And again, since you're at the same facility making the same turns week in and week out, all this will become very, very easy and very repeatable once you have a baseline of where to start, for example, with tire pressures, or where to start with carburation if you're running a two-cycle kart that requires some adjustment to that type of thing. But this is one of the things that makes that type of racing very appealing. There's not a lot of changes, there's not a lot of curveballs, and all your development, all of your testing can go into being very good at that one particular track. Another good thing about racing in the same track week in and week out is you very quickly learn the tendencies of the people you're racing with. This again can be very beneficial, as when you go charging into a corner and you go underneath somebody, you know who's going to give you room, who's not, who's going to do a little bumping and rubbing and all that stuff, and who is going to be a little more courteous and give you room to race. This, again, can be a very big benefit, especially to a brand new racer. Also, let's not forget that when you're at the same racetrack week in and week out, a lot of your fixed expenses remain constant. For example, entry fees, pit passes, transponder rentals, fuel getting back and forth to the racetrack, how much fuel you're going to use on a race day. These things aren't going to fluctuate a whole lot, if any at all. And again, this can go a long way in helping you figure out what your budgetary needs are for your racing season. Another great reason to run the same racetrack week in and week out is it makes it substantially easier for your family and your friends to come out and watch your race and enjoy a race weekend. Typically, if your racetrack's within an hour or so of your where you live, you certainly have a lot better chance of getting family and friends to show up to the racetrack to either help you out or just come out and hang out and enjoy a great evening or afternoon of racing. So those are just a few of the reasons I could think of why you would want to race at the same racetrack each and every week or each and every time you go out. If I've forgotten anything or you have a few good reasons that I missed, just go ahead and scroll on down and put those in the comments and share them with everybody. Would love to hear what you have to say. Now though, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the not so great things about racing at the same racetrack each and every week. One of the big reasons you may not want to race at the same racetrack each and every week is because, well, you're racing at the same racetrack each and every week. If you like a new challenge, if you like things to change, it's not going to happen at the same racetrack each and every week. Now, what's really neat is a lot of facilities are being built to where they can have multiple layouts on the same facility. And this certainly can go a long way into changing things up. However, not all racetracks can do that. And even with the changing of the venue, you're still racing against the same people who are going to be doing the same things on and off the track. And sometimes it can be very difficult to grow as a race driver if you're not continually being challenged with your driving lines, your setups, and a few other things. So that's definitely one reason that you may not want to, over a long period of time, race at the same racetrack each and every week. Another thing that can make racing at the same racetrack not so appealing is when you have to continually compete against people who have been running the same racetrack for 10, 12, 15, 20 years. It's not uncommon in some of these more established tracks to have some racers that spend their whole career there for various reasons, all of which are perfectly valid. However, if your goal is to become as versatile a race driver and as good at chassis tuning as you can be, running that same racetrack, it can stunt your growth. So that's another thing to definitely take into consideration. So there you go, some of the positives and the negatives of racing at the same racetrack each and every weekend. Now, let's go ahead and look at some of the pros and cons of racing at a different racetrack every weekend in a traveling series. Probably the most obvious thing is the fact that you are not at the same racetrack every week, which means a new challenge every time you go out for an event. You're always going to have people that have been in the series longer than you have. However, since you're not racing those tracks week in and week out, that experience gap gets much shorter and it's a much easier distance to make up on. So different tracks, every time you go out, new challenges, those are things that can keep things fresh and also keep you on your toes as far as your development as a driver and as a chassis tuner. Another thing to take into consideration is traveling racing series tend to draw stronger competitors. By you competing week in, week out, however often you race in this series with stronger competition, it's only going to make you a better race driver and a better chassis tuner because you're... Another great reason to participate in a traveling series is these series tend to, on a whole, draw a better quality of competition. This is going to elevate your game. We've all heard a rising tide raises all ships. This is no different. By competing harder against better competition, your learning curve is going to grow exponentially, and you are going to become a better racer and a better tuner at a much quicker pace. Another great point is the variety of racetracks and track surfaces tend not to favor one particular chassis or one particular driving style. This is a benefit to you simply because of the fact that whatever chassis you have, whatever your driving style is, there's a good chance at some point during that series you're going to hit a couple of tracks that are going to favor you over some of the other people you're racing with. All right, now that we've covered some of the pros of why you should race in a traveling series, let's take a look at some of the cons, some of the not so great things. Let's start with number one. If you're in a traveling series, the word travel probably is going to require you to take more time off work, and those trips to the racetrack are certainly going to be a little more expensive than the trip to your local track. Between higher entry fees and travel time, which is going to be more gasoline for your tow vehicle, you're certainly going to spend more money each and every time you go to the racetrack. Here's another one. If you're a new driver and you haven't quite mastered the art of driving yet, chassis setup, gear selection, etc., well, guess what? Going to a totally different place than you were the last time you were in the kart doesn't make it any easier. In fact, it makes it substantially more difficult. And of course, let's not forget, those 3 and 4 hour travel times certainly don't entice any of your friends or family to come to the racetrack and support you. Having them come to the racetrack when you're on a traveling series probably is not going to happen. All right, so there's the pros and cons of both types of racing. Local club racing and traveling circuit racing. So, which one's best? Neither of them. Each has its place. In fact, if you're brand new to kart racing, especially if you're brand new to racing anything at all, I'm going to say this. You should probably spend your first 2 years racing at your local racetrack. The reason being is, one, you're going to learn how to drive, you're going to learn how to work and tune your kart, and you're also going to learn what things you need to have at the racetrack with you. Everything from spare parts to what fluids, how much fuel, all these things that are much easier to deal with when you're at a local racetrack at a fixed location. Believe me, there's nothing worse than being 4 hours from home with not a kart shop within 100 miles and nobody's got the part you need. These are all things you learn from experience. Definitely cut your teeth, learn your racecraft at the local level. However, if after that time you're looking for a bigger challenge, and certainly if you have the budget for it, I strongly recommend trying a couple of different racing circuits. Don't necessarily land on one right away. Try a couple. If you like sprint racing, there's all kinds of different sprint racing circuits. If you'd like to try road racing like what I do, by all means, come on out and try it. You'll have an absolute blast. But the point is, both forms of racing are terrific. They are tons of fun. They are very affordable, relatively speaking, one versus the other to other forms of motorsports. It really comes down to what do you want to do? What do you want to get out of karting? Hey, if you can think of anything we didn't discuss pertaining to this topic, please put it down in the comments. So hey, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Which is better, racing at the same racetrack every week or traveling to a different racetrack? The bottom line is they are both fantastic. They both serve purposes for all kinds of different people. Really what it comes down to is what are you trying to get out of your kart racing? If your goal is to go out and have a good time and spend the least amount of money as possible, then by all means, find a local track in your area, support that track, and have a blast. If your goal is to become a better, well-rounded race driver and experience as many different places as possible, maybe run on some of the same racetracks that you see your heroes race on, well then try a traveling series. The great thing about a lot of those series is you're certainly not required to race all the races. You can do a handful of them while you're still racing at your local track. Try road racing. I'm a big proponent of that, of course. That's what I do. Absolutely love it. And the great thing about kart racing is the kart that you race at your local racetrack, you can take that and run anywhere in the United States on any size track. Well, hey friends, if there's anything you can think of, pros, cons, either way about either form of racing that I didn't mention, feel free to go ahead and leave it in the comments and share it with everybody so we can all gain from some of your experiences. YouTube emblem, go ahead and click that so you can become a subscriber to this channel and you can benefit from all the information that I share on the screen and that our viewers share down in the comments section. Also, make sure you click that notification bell. Hey everybody, thanks for watching and we'll talk to you again real soon.